Okay, so welcome everyone to this time of being sheltered in place during this worldwide pandemic. What a crazy time this is. And everything came to a shuddering stop so suddenly. And so this is a one time, hopefully, in history that we will be experiencing this all together. And it sort of left us in this state of profound groundlessness. And this is a very different talk than the talk that I was going to give a few weeks ago that was going to be in person. And I had to cancel that because we were just going into a shelter in place time. And so I decided to do it in this form. So there won't be as much dialogue back and forth, but I will share. And then if there's time, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So some of you may be feeling during this time a sense of fear. Some may be feeling a sense of relief. Some may be feeling confusion or boredom or overwhelm. And so how do we use this time to actually drop in deeper into our spiritual lives and to live a more free, more happy, more unconditionally happy, and more actually available to life during this time? How do we take advantage of this time? And so that's what I would like to talk about. I will be giving a talk, and weaving into that, I'm going to be working with some different practices. So I'll be, as I talk, I'll just bring in a practice that is pertinent to what I am talking about, things for you to be able to practice at home. So they'll just be short meditations, and then again, we'll have some questions hopefully at the end. And if not, I'll make a space for us to have the questions at another time. So let's start with a short practice. So just get comfortable and just close your eyes if you would like to. And just take a moment and just feel the stillness of the world right now. The entire world has stopped. See if you can actually really sense that stillness that's there. Just listen. This is something that's so profoundly new. And listen with your body, not your mind. So let your body feel your breath. You even might want to deepen your breath a little bit down into your belly, and you might want to make your in-breath and out-breath the same length, just so that we can begin to deepen with each other and into this time of stillness. Listen to the sounds around you. Open up your senses. Such a rare time to have the world stopped like this. Okay. So I want to ask the question, what is freedom? So just take a moment and just contemplate what does that mean to you? What is freedom? The definition of freedom is having the ability to act or change without constraint. Something is free if it can change easily and is not constrained in its present state. So I'll say that again. Definition of freedom: having the ability to act or change without constraint. Something is free if it can change easily and is not constrained in its present state. So I think to really understand freedom, I want to share some of the primary teachings of Buddhism, because this gives a really kind of clear ground for us to be starting to work from. So the primary teaching of Buddhism is suffering and the end of suffering. That's really it. That is the teaching of Buddhism. And there's a whole lot of teaching around that, but it's suffering and the end of suffering. So what is suffering? In a very precise, concise sentence, it would be the resistance to what is. So as humans, we have this very strong tendency to want more of what we like, and we want less of what we don't like. And our whole lives are based on this, if we're not paying attention. And then it's the resisting if we don't get either, if we can't get what we want and we aren't getting rid of what we don't want. So we could say that this is attachment and resistance. There's a difference between pain and suffering, and this feels important to be able to share. Pain is the inevitability of life: loss, hurt, grieving, sickness, death. These are all things that are just part of our humanness. But the suffering is the overlay that happens on top of that, our story about those inevitable things. So it's the suffering that comes when we say, if only, it shouldn't have. Why did that happen? I didn't like that happening. We shouldn't be in a pandemic. We shouldn't be sheltered in place, whatever. That's the suffering that comes on top of the natural part of our humanness and our pain. So another important teaching in Buddhism is around the ego. And the ego is seen differently from a psychological standpoint than it is from a spiritual standpoint. So I'm speaking from a spiritual standpoint. The ego it's defined as the mistaken belief that we are separate, that we're a separate solid self. And it's primarily the painful, futile struggle to maintain that delusion. If there's anything that's coming from this pandemic, it's the realization that we are so profoundly interconnected. You cannot take one truck driver out of the situation and not be affected by our food supply. Everything is being affected by everything else. So this sense that the ego is constantly trying to maintain its sense of me. I'm here and you're there. Often we can see this in an unconscious way. What often is happening is that when we're out and about, say we're in the grocery store, unconsciously we're constantly comparing ourselves to everything else. I'm taller, I'm shorter, I'm smarter, I'm dumber, I'm more beautiful, I'm more ugly, I'm older, I'm younger, I'm fatter, I'm skinnier, I'm everything. That's happening with everything we see. It's this comparing to everything else because I'm here and you're there. And once we do that, then we spend a whole lot of time defending what we create. We're defending the me. The other part of the ego is the part of the mind, the egoic mind, that is designed to solve problems. It is constantly, the mind's purpose for being here is to solve problems. And if there isn't one, it will create one to solve. And this is an important thing to remember, especially right now, is that what the mind is trying to do is it's trying to get it right. It's trying to feel in control. It's trying to know. It's trying to be loved. It's trying to be approved of. It's trying to be accepted. And when we don't feel in control, all of our mechanisms come up to try to be more in control. That's just what the mind does. There isn't a problem with it. There isn't a problem with the egoic part of wanting to be over here and you over there. It's just what it does. But we're going to learn how to have a little more awareness around it so we're not owned by it. So all of our defense mechanisms were developed around how to stay loved, how to be loved. So we all learned this as children. We learned ways to stay safe, to stay in control, for life to make sense, to feel loved. And we all have our particular way, our particular brilliant strategy of how to do that. And we all have our special ways because we're unique. We were in particular families and our society, our certain parts of society that we grew up in. And again, these are brilliant strategies that if you think about what we developed, it's quite remarkable. And they definitely can keep us from freedom when we're not aware of the strategy. When the strategy is owning us rather than we're just aware of it as a normal process, but we don't have to be owned by it. So you add on top of that, that humans have an extremely strong negativity bias. So we are organized by fear. And when we developed as a species, if we did not focus on the negative, we would not have survived or evolved. So it was a really fantastic thing that we had this bias towards negativity. What was going to kill us? Lions and tigers and bears. The thing is that now we don't have the lions and tigers and bears. So what we did instead, what the mind does is it creates a psychological problem instead of these external real dangers. So to be negatively biased is fantastic for protection, but it's not very good for freedom and happiness. So I want to tell you a little story about that represents negativity bias. So this young monk goes to this monastery. He arrives at this monastery to go help the other monks copy the canons. And he realizes that they're copying copies of copies. And that's kind of like telephone. You know, if there was one mistake, that mistake gets then passed on and passed on. And so he went to the abbot to go and tell the abbot, you know, you might be having made all these mistakes all along and you wouldn't know it because, you know, you've been just making copies after copies. So the abbot said, you know, we've been doing this a long time, but you've got a point, so I'll check into it. So the abbot goes down to the dark caves where the original manuscripts are locked, and they're locked in a vault. They haven't been opened for hundreds of years. Hours go by and the monk goes, you know, oh my gosh, what's going on? I feel responsible. Where's the monk? Where's the abbot? So he goes deep down into the vault, and he goes down and he finds the abbot just beating his head against the wall, and he's crying uncontrollably. And the monk says, Father, what could be wrong? What's wrong? And in this choking voice, the abbot says, the word was celebrate. So that's a good little example of negativity bias. That was a long time ago. So here are some of the fears that we have. And here are some of the negativity bias. Will I be loved? Will I be accepted? Will I be late? There's fear that something's missing. If only. If something isn't wrong now, it will be soon. If only I could get everything done. Believe me, it doesn't matter if you get everything done because there will always be more to screw up. In the Dharma teacher world, we have a saying that says, you are only as good as your last talk. I hope this is a good one. We have fears of living, and we have fears of not living. And one of our primary fears that we have is of losing control. And that's why this pandemic is so insulting to our egos in some way, because we're really able to feel the reality of our lives, which is that we are always not in control. But this brings it even more close to home. We so desperately want to get it right. And when our cultural container goes away, we go back to fear. So when the normalcy of life is taken away, like in this pandemic, we go back to our patterns, and our strategies often are what surface. Don't take that personally. That's actually really good news, because it's going to heighten possibly what is our strategy, and we get to actually learn how to work with it, because this is this quiet time. This is a time when life has changed so much. So there's a vicious cycle when we create the illusion of separation, this idea, I'm here and you're there. We can then feel so afraid and so vulnerable of that separation that we create more of a sense of me, which creates more separation and more vulnerability. So where does our freedom come from? And it comes from paying attention to your patterns. What do you do when you're afraid? Do you control? Do you get busy? Do you worry? Do you get angry? Do you start researching things? Do you start restricting your eating or your exercise? Or do you collapse? Do you dissociate in some way? And so what is there when the ego, and in this way, I'm calling the ego, I'm using the ego as a verb, in the sense that when we're in the present moment, not doing the I'm over here and you're over there, the comparing mind. If that is not active, what is here? If we're not doing the planning and the worry, what's here? Our heart, our ability to feel love, our bodies, the sensations, our sense perceptions, our intuition. It's this learning to not grab at what you want in hopes it will save you, or to push away what you think will hurt you. That's saying, when you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. That's what this is. It's saying, if you think there's something external that's going to save you, you're not, it won't. When we actually pay attention, we're freed from being owned by our conditioning, and thus allowed to have a sense of free will about when we respond. So we're in a state more of non-reactivity. So we're not trying to be free of the world, but free in the world, or freedom within the constraints of our humanity. And I mean that in the sense that we will never control the world, and we will never fully control our mind. But when you can non-judgmentally witness your patterns and learn to have this sense of freedom, instead of being like a dog on a leash with your habitual patterning and your reactivity. So there we can allow life to be life and be free to choose how we'll respond rather than just blindly reacting. And you have the freedom to do it differently. And this is why the pandemic is such an incredible opportunity. Life is slowed down enough for us to actually pay attention. Our natural containers and norms are not there. So what is freedom? Freedom is this willingness to feel our humanity, to feel our vulnerability, to feel what is arising, and that without the reactive part to it. And the more we allow the world to be felt fully, when we really allow the world as it is to be felt within us, all of the good and all of the bad, the more we can tolerate the intensity of experience. We don't have to do the brilliant childhood strategies to be able to tolerate our lives. We can tolerate our experience right now. And from the more we are able to tolerate our experience, the more that we can be non-reactive. We have a choice and we have free will. So I'd like to do a little practice. And this is a practice that is actually more of a contemplation. And it's a really helpful one when we're feeling that reactivity. So this is something that allows us to have more freedom. So just breathe and settle back in and just find your breath again. The breath is one of the most helpful things. Breathe down into your belly. And just notice, what is the quality of your mind right now? And notice it without any judgment at all. Is it busy? Is it bored? Is it tight? And then notice what your emotional state is. What's the quality of your emotional state right now? And what most has your attention as you sit here? Just notice, where is your attention going predominantly? And what does that attention, wherever your attention's going, what does it feel like in your body? Not what does it think like, but what does it actually feel like? Does it feel tight or sharp or numb? Does it feel pulling, hot? Just see what it's like. Just allow it to be here. See if you can drop the thought about it, but just let it actually be felt. There may not be much going on, so feel that. And ask yourself the question, can I be with this? You might ask, what's the belief around this feeling? I always do this. I can't stop this. I started feeling this way whenever I listened to a talk by Tory. Whatever it is, find out, is it solid? Or is it actually changing and shifting as you feel it? Can I be with this with tenderness and not have to change a thing? So just spend a few moments here in quiet, just sensing whatever has your attention right now. See if you can feel it as the energy that it is rather than the overlay of the story of that experience. It actually is just energy. Even if you might be cold or hot, can you feel it as experience rather than having the overlay of that? I shouldn't be cold. I need to do something. Just for now, just sense it. So what we just did, there's a little, an easy way of being able to work with this that is a Buddhist practice, and it's called RAIN, R-A-I-N. RAIN stands for R, recognize. Recognize that there is a feeling that's happening. There's an experience that's arising. A is accept. Accept it, notice it, allow it to be here. I is investigate. What does it feel like? What is the belief around this? Is it solid? Does it change when I actually just feel it? And N, in different circles, they look at that in different ways. One way of looking at it is nurture. Can I be with this with tenderness? Can I actually put my hand on my heart and be with this in tenderness and not have to change anything? The other way, the other N is non-personal, meaning that it's a human experience that arises and that there is no separate me here. It's just humanness that arises very naturally. So RAIN, recognize, accept, investigate, nurture, or non-personal. So when we're not focused on the creation of me, the separate self, not thinking ourselves constantly into creation. Remember that when we are creating the sense of me, to keep the me going, the idea of me, I have to keep it going. As soon as I stop thinking about it, that process stops. It's only the mind that keeps me separate. In reality, the natural world is not seeing me as separate. We're all just a layer of skin apart. And that's even that is, we're completely affecting each other always. So when we're not in that state of creating the me, thinking myself into creation, we can feel this sense of freedom and unconditional happiness. And so the reason why I just did that, the RAIN practice of being able to just feel our experiences, that the way to freedom is to pay attention. So this sense of being able to feel what is arising without it owning us, where we have no control over our reactivity, but actually being able to feel it. And that's again why this pandemic, this time is amazing, is that we actually have the ability, with more time and less happening around us, that we actually get to track what's happening in our emotional world, in our thinking world. So there's a quote by a woman was, actually a friend of mine was visiting saw a Swami in India, and asked the Swami, he was dirty and homeless and had no food. And he asked the Swami, "Are you happy?" And he said, "I am perfect. It is just my mind. I am perfect. It is just my mind." So this sense of, in that, what he's saying is that when he's present, just with this, he's fine. When he can see his humanity for what it is, he sees it's just a pattern of the mind or the ego and not his true nature. May we learn from the Swami. So the only way to truly stay in the present moment, the only way to actually be in the present moment, is through our sense perceptions, through sound, feeling, sight, taste, touch. Everything else is as soon as we've thought about it, it's in past or future already. So there is, in that moment when we're actually just resting in our sense perception, there's no me being created. So just for a moment, just rest in your sense perceptions. Just listen to the sounds around you. Feel the chair or cushion or floor underneath you. And feel your breath as it moves through you. If your hands are touching each other or your legs, let that be felt. Notice the sense perception of your emotion, meaning every emotion, every thought has a feeling within the body. Notice what it's like to feel, is the body tight? Is it loose? And in that moment, when we're doing that, when we're actually just staying in sense perception, we're not in that process of the verb of egoing. We just are. There's no me being created in that moment. So if your habit is to feel that something is wrong, there will always be something wrong. If your habit is to always see the beauty in things, you will always see the beauty in things. And again, this is why the pandemic is so helpful here. How do you see this time? Do you see it as a problem? Of course, there are so many beings that are suffering, humans that are suffering over this. And I'm not taking away from that. But how do you, in this moment, just as we sit here, how do you see this time? Are you resistant to it? Are you fighting it in some way? Fighting that you may be home having to take care of kids, not working, or working and having to take care of kids, or being at home and being lonely, or whatever it might be. Notice for a moment if you're always looking for trouble. And notice what that feels like in your body. Just take a moment and notice if even in this moment as you sit here, are you looking for what's wrong? Is there something wrong with the timing or my talk or where you're sitting right now or any of it? You wish it was different somehow. You wish I was touching on some other part of what you're wanting to hear about. Just notice if there's a part of you that is always looking for trouble. There's a feeling in our body when we are oriented towards trouble. Just in this moment, see what it's like to, again, come back to sense perception. And then one of the easiest ways for that is to be aware of hearing. I'll be coming back to this practice of looking for trouble versus looking for goodness or kindness or gratitude. But just before we move on from this, just see what it's like to have one thing in this moment that you notice that you're grateful for, just in this moment. So far we've talked a bit about what keeps us from freedom, resisting what is, being caught in our unique conditioning around grasping and resistance, being unaware of our habits and being caught in our reactivity, being caught in the illusion that we're separate and then having to defend that position. So I want to give some more techniques for working with all of this in relation to this very specific time, ways to support your freedom and unconditional happiness. So I have 4 practices that I'd like to give you, and these are very, some of them are very familiar practices in certain sects of Buddhism and other Eastern spiritual practices. And these 4 are not knowing, equanimity, surrender, and finding contentment right in this moment. Okay, so not knowing. So I'm just going to talk for a moment about not knowing, and then we'll do a practice. So freedom is having this sense of a beginner's mind. And that means not referencing to the past or the future, but to this very fresh, open, fluid, this mind that reveals right here and right now. And the only way to be in the present moment, again, is through sense perception. Everything else is past or future. So to stay in the present moment, we have to stay in the sense of, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And again, this pandemic is amazing for all of us because we are getting how little we know about what's going to happen. So this sense of that, staying in this state of, I don't know. As soon as we say internally or externally, I know that. I know that person, I know that thing, I know that opinion I have. We are not free, we're not curious, we're not open, we're not available, and we're non-solidified, meaning that we're very solidified about around an idea. And it's not like we don't know anything, we know a lot. But when we do this kind of practice, we start to develop and cultivate that curiosity. And when we do, I know that, then we have to defend that thing that we think we know. That's egoing. That's creating a self. So there's a koan in Zen Buddhism, and the koan is, not knowing is most intimate. And we can fully be with experience when we're not solidifying, not categorizing, not liking or disliking, not wanting or resisting, but just being with the isness of something purely. It's very intimate. We get to fully experience it without our overlay of our thought of it, which makes a distance between it. Imagine if you met your beloveds in not knowing every time you saw them, meeting them with these fresh eyes of you're new and different in every moment. So we don't have this imagination of who they are before we've even seen them. I'm going to read a quote to you from a spiritual teacher of mine, George Bertelstein. He says, turn everything you are absolutely convinced is the unequivocal truth upside down. Hold it by its feet over the edge of a cliff overhanging eternity, and shake it until it is empty of form and content. Then observe and honor its true nature. It is not necessary to debunk anyone or anything. Truth is a feeling, a symphonic, harmonic surge of resonance within the mind, body, and spirit that brings peace, not anger, and love, not the other thing. So let's practice for a moment. So again, just find this comfortable position, and you can close your eyes so you can go in a little bit more. Again, just find this nice, quiet, long breath down into your belly. And every time your mind wants to grab hold of something and solidify around it, to make it solid, to make it something that you start to get, like on a train, you start being taken away on the train. You get on the train and go with it. See what it's like to just drop in. I don't know. I really don't know. Not knowing is most intimate. Let your not knowing be felt within the body, in your bones. Don't just think it, but actually feel the not knowing. Just notice the mind wanting to grab hold of something and just keep dropping it in, even if you have to do it 100 times. I really don't know. Say it with a very soft voice. See if you can feel the freedom in allowing yourself to not know. There is so much of a day when you need to know, but right now you don't need to know. And there's so much of a day that you think you need to know and you don't need to know. I don't know. Okay. Thank you. So we have Buddhism can get confusing at times because there's a sense of passivity that often can be misunderstood, that it's passivity, but more it's a sense of allowing ourselves to be available and free, the sense of fluidity, of freedom to be in life in this sense of openness, available, not knowing, curious, innocent. As humans, we have a very, very deep, deep habit of living in our misery. We're constantly confirming our patterns, which makes us think that what our patterns are, that they are true, that the way we experience life is true. That's from a thought that comes often from our conditioning, rather than this fluid state of meeting things fresh each time they come. Often we think that if we aren't worrying, we won't be in control of our life. This is a big one. That if we were to actually give up our worry, we would lose control. But in actuality, that keeps us very contracted. So this sense of freedom is this, to be free is to stay open and flexible, responsive, not reactive, but responding to life, not knowing. I don't know what's going to happen this moment. I don't know what I will feel. I don't know what they will do or who they are actually, what they are, what they feel inside, what they'll say. Life is like a waterfall, the sense of that everything that we want to solidify around is like, well, there it is. Oh, no, it's gone over the, oh, and then, but, oh, no, but it's over the waterfall. Oh, but this for sure. Oh, it just went over the waterfall. Everything is in that state of impermanence constantly. Everything other than our true nature. That is this sense of this, to say it in an easy term because I've got a group of people on this that are all different levels of understanding about this, is that it's sort of the thing that is the mystery that remains, but everything else that is a thought, a feeling, the chair, the table, the everything is in this process of change and going over the waterfall. That thing that does not go away, that thing we can touch on when we're quiet and resting, is what is unconditioned. Unconditioned by society or family or our karma. It's non-judgmental. It's this freedom to experience life fully without the overlay, which is this freedom to experience the mystery. That thing that was there long before you were thinking. So the second practice is equanimity, and I would also call that stability. So in Tibetan Buddhism, there is a saying, the lion's roar. And that is a saying that is about the lion that is the most powerful animal in the jungle. And when it roars, all the other animals stop and listen. And what it's teaching is that there's a deep confidence that we can have when we learn that we can tolerate life, we can tolerate experience, we can tolerate what comes up in us. I just want to say that I keep getting that my internet is unstable. So I'm very sorry if I freeze up. I hope it's not too bad. And Lauren, if it's really bad, can you send me a text? That would be great. So it's this ability. Okay, she says it's not bad. Okay, thank you. So, this this confidence in that we can tolerate what comes up in us. And in that knowing is such a sense of well-being and freedom. Also in Buddhism, there's a saying that says strong back and soft front. And what that means is a strong back that can face anything. It can turn towards everything that arises. And the soft front, which meets whatever it turns towards with love and compassion and gentleness. Whenever I am leading a residential retreat or a multi-day retreat, we always start by giving what's called a torma, or a little cake, which can just be some nuts or something. We offer and we invite in, it's not just offering and recognizing, it's actually inviting in everything that is painful and scary and hard and disturbing and embarrassing about life and ourselves, as well as inviting in everything that is beautiful and good and the things that we love. We invite that in and we equally give that a treat, saying you are welcome here, because that allows us to be free, not scared for what might arise with the resistance to it. When we know that loss and sickness and disappointment and grief and old age is inevitable, and we learn that we can tolerate it, we can handle it, so much freedom. The Buddhist image of equanimity is this beautiful table that is set with all these gorgeous table settings. And everything is invited, the hard things, the good things, with an equally beautiful table setting for it. So the equanimity comes from not resisting anything. Anthony de Mello, an Indian Jesuit priest, says, he says, enlightenment is the absolute cooperation with the inevitable. Enlightenment is the absolute cooperation with the inevitable. There are things that in our human experience that are inevitable and we will experience as human. If we don't try to resist them or escape them, enlightenment is possible. Another way of saying it is what you resist persists. And as Star Trek said in Star Trek, resistance is futile. So we spend so much life force wanting things to be different. We want it to be warmer or colder, or we want that somebody to treat us differently, or we want a different partner, or we want a different job. Some things of those you can change, but a lot of it we can't. So let's do a practice around equanimity and stability. So again, just let your eyes close. Find your breath. It helps to just find this equal in-breath and out-breath. Our nervous systems begin to settle a little bit. And then just let that go and just breathe naturally, but just to settle in. And just let everything be here right now. See what it's like to, don't judge what's here, just let it be here. But I want you to sense this midline that comes down from your throat, right through the center of your body, right through your core, through your pelvic floor. Don't think it. See if you can actually feel this midline of your body. See if you can feel down into your belly, sense your belly. You might find that from your pelvic floor up to your belly. Just feel your belly as it moves. There is a sense of stability in sensing our midline of our body. Feel the groundedness and the uprightness of your body. Just let everything that is occurring right now, whether it feels good or doesn't feel good, just let it happen and see what it's like to not resist. And feel the sense of stability that can happen when you're not moving from side to side to get or get rid of. Just being here. But find the stability in the actual feeling within the body. You can sense it as it moves through your throat, down through your heart center, down through your core. Like a mountain, we sit until only the mountain remains. The sense that as a mountain, the hail and the snow and the wind and the rain and the hot sun can come, but the mountain just remains. There's a quiet stability. Even if the inside feels tumultuous, we can still find stability, even within the weather that's arising within. But we find it through the sensing of the stability within the body. Okay. The third practice is surrender. So what is it to surrender? It's not a collapse. It's a letting go in this moment of trying to control, to figure out, to solve anything. Similar to equanimity, but it's a little different in this, in that when we surrender trying to control, the mind is not trying to get it right. And again, during this time of the pandemic, there is what I'm finding in most people, and in myself, I noticed it too. There is a little heightened sense of trying to get it right, whether it's trying to create a new schedule in your life, trying to get your how you're feeling just right, trying to get something right. So when we're not trying to get something right, and again, this is a practice we can do when we're actually sitting and meditating and practicing, so that it helps us in our day-to-day life about this sense of tightening around and trying to control what we can't control. So we can touch, when we let go of that sense of control, where we can touch something that's way beyond the mind. Again, what was there long before you started thinking. We're touching that thing that moves the world without us having to try to get involved in any way. It just happens without us. So this means, again, we stop resisting. And if your mind is wild, notice that, feel that. Don't try to control your experience. This is very paradoxical in a lot of meditation practices. And in this, we're not trying to stop or change our mind, our feelings, our breath, anything. We're completely stopping, resisting anything. If your mind is wild, feel what wild feels like. If it's chaotic, feel chaotic. If your heart is tight, feel tight heart. But just notice. Keep paying attention. Notice what happens when you're aware of what's happening. We are pretty much always trying to control life in some way. And when we do, we're not listening, we're not paying attention. So this practice is going to be about surrendering to right here, right now, to what is, whatever your situation, whatever your pandemic. So and of course, there are many things we need to attend to, and we will in our lives, but there's so much that's out of our control. And I guarantee you, if you go to war with your mind will always win. So just be aware and decide where you would like to orient your mind. Again, if you orient towards trouble, you will have trouble. If you orient towards gratitude and love, you will have gratitude and love. It's not controlling the mind. It's just noticing and just orienting. Okay, so we'll practice again. So just closing your eyes, and again, a way to come in is through sensing your breath or sense perception of sound. And in this little surrender, just notice what's arising without trying to change anything, but just pay attention. Keep returning to just noticing without trying to adjust or resist or change. Just notice thought, feeling, sensation. See what it's like to keep relaxing in the face of, without changing anything. Just relax and notice. Okay. So the fourth practice that I want to give you is appreciating here. I would say this is happy for no reason, nowhere else to be, nothing to do, nowhere to go. There's a story of Peter Matthiessen, who wrote The Snow Leopard, and that he's visiting this crippled man, very, very crippled, has to be carried everywhere. And he's visiting this man in this very remote monastery in the Himalayas. And the man has these very clear, bright eyes. He's direct. He laughs out loud. He's got these totally mangled legs. He has to be carried. He can't move himself. And Peter asks the same question that the person asked the Swami. And he asks if the man was happy. And the man replies, "Of course I'm happy. It's wonderful, especially when I have no choice." How perfect is that for this pandemic and being sheltered in place? We have no choice. Of course I'm happy. It's wonderful, especially when I have no choice. Where do we orient? It's not trying to control, but just deciding, do we want to orient towards our unhelpful thoughts? You can tolerate what is arising. So momentary happiness is just that, it's momentary. We get that great piece of cake. We get whatever, maybe even we get the great person in our life. We get the great sexual experience. We get the great exercise, whatever it might be. But it's momentary. And to arrive in this timeless, unconditioned happiness that I speak about here, that is not dependent on what is happening externally. That's not momentary. So let's do one more practice here. Appreciating here. So just again, let your eyes close and find your breath, come through sense perceptions, fill your belly. Really entering into the breath. Feel your whole core move. There's a sense of being massaged by the breath. Feel it in your back body, around your heart and your sacrum. And just ask yourself in this moment, what is between me and being happy right now? Just notice if you feel like something's missing, or if there's an if only Tori would end this talk, or if only I could get up, if only I could change, if only I had a job, if only I had a boyfriend, or whatever it might be. Notice if you feel something's missing, or if only. You might notice your habitual habit. Is there impatience or disappointment or joy? Anything. Just notice what's familiar here and meet that with no judgment at all. Feel it, notice it. What does it feel like? And just say to yourself, I can be with this right now. See what it's like to relax even more. Relax your body and your mind. Let your brain kind of drain down into your body. Notice that what's here in this moment is okay. The pandemic is saying nowhere to go, nothing to do. Who am I without something missing or something wrong? Happy for no reason. Let the corners of your mouth just barely engage. So there's a tiny, what we call a half smile. If someone could see you, they might not even notice. It's just engaging the corners of your lips into a tiny half smile. And just notice what happens in your body. Okay. So starting to bring this part of the talk to a close, and just to say that this is, again, such a rare time in human history. The world is stopping, has stopped. So stop. We have this opportunity to deepen into our spiritual lives, to wake up. If we can go beyond our fear and our conditioned habitual responses, internally and externally, we have this space right now to explore choosing freedom over bondage, the bondage by our minds and our habitual reactions to life. It's a time to go deep, take a risk, to explore, to notice, to be vulnerable. Let this time crack your heart open. It might mean that when we crack our heart open and we pay attention, we may feel a lot of the suffering that's happening in the world right now. And you can tolerate that. It gives us even more opening. In Buddhism, there's a saying, the wisdom of no escape. And never before has this been more poignant. Find the freedom in no escape. There's nowhere to go but deep. On the other hand, there's a lot that's happening right now. So many beautiful things that are happening online and through Facebook and whatever. There's so many things that are coming. Beautiful things on there, dance classes happening and online workouts and talks and offerings and poems and this and that. And it's fabulous. It's amazing. And it can be a way to stay in our conditioned way of doing and just filling ourselves so that we don't actually have to feel or deepen into this profound opportunity we have. So have a lot of discretion and discernment in how you relate with all these things coming at us. I want to read a poem by Susan Berman, who's on this call. I saw your name up here, Susan, so thank you for this poem. She wrote this on my property a few days ago. She says, let us reconsider, not locked down, just tucked in, not imprisoned, but realigning. The compass is looking for the map. Every direction has its calling. We put our ear to the wall, to the ground, inside, deep inside. The heart of this day is our earth, in exquisite, timeless wisdom, quietly singing. So this is a time to question your assumptions. Remember that all thought in the absence of awareness, I'll say that again, all thought in the absence of awareness happens to you. You're at the mercy of the thought. You can be possessed even. But as soon as we realize the thoughts themselves, the thoughts lose their power. So we don't have to change anything. We just have to notice, pay attention. And then we can feel that this is not even personal. It's just what the brain does. Don't take it personally. Without awareness, though, there's no free will. And that means there's no freedom. So take this time to make this connection with something much more vast than your habitual judgmental self, but more with spirit and mystery. There is something happening, especially because things are so quiet on one level, that we get to listen to. So in this profoundly groundless and unknown time, and with all the suffering that's happening, and there's a lot of that happening, we get to experience the interconnection with everything. There's so many good things that are happening from this right now, I'll just say, even with the profound suffering. So I'm not diminishing that, but the good things. We get to go deep. We get to experience the interconnection of everything. We get to see that we can live with so much less than we thought. We get to finally give the earth its most needed break. Many of you have heard of the stories of the air quality in China, the dolphins coming up the canals in Venice because they're clearing out. So it's a wonderful time. So it's a wonderful time to tolerate, to enjoy, to cultivate actually the simplicity of the times. We have few choices. So tolerate the impulse to fill the space. Just rest and lie fallow so you can let the soil rejuvenate itself. Let the other parts of you that don't get a chance to grow. Something I want to caution all of us is that when the shelter in place, the pandemic ends, there will probably be a huge pull to rush back into life. I'd like to just suggest that we pause and we stop and we listen before we launch. How do you want to spend this rare, precious moment of stillness? If this may never happen again in your lifetime, what are you learning? What are you cultivating? What do you want to take back into, quote, normal life? Commit to this and to carry this on with you. So when you're caught in a disturbing mind state, I just want to remind you here, notice, stop, sit down, feel, do rain, recognize, accept, investigate, nurture. And wait for your natural stability to arise. It will. Come back to your breath and sense perception, and your natural equanimity and stability will arise again. If you don't do that, it won't. You'll be looking for trouble. Keep remembering that you're fundamentally okay and fundamentally free. So I ask the question again before we end here. What is freedom? Again, the definition, having the ability to act or change without constraint. Something is free if it can change easily and is not constrained in its present state. I want to read this beautiful poem that has been going around, but it's so poignant, I want to read it again, by Lynn Ungar. It's called Pandemic. It was written for this time. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are both terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. I wrote this morning in my journal, what is freedom? And I wanted to share it with you, my own experience of what is freedom. Freedom, to be vulnerable, to be soft, open, listening, fluid, willing to follow the small, quiet voice of spirit, even if that means I'm not liked, I'm not approved of. Freedom is the willingness to take chances and make mistakes. The willingness to be direct, to care for my own business and to stay out of anybody else's business that's not mine. To remember that I'm not separate. To remember that I have a choice in all my reactions, that I'm not owned by my conditioning. Freedom is the ability and the willingness to follow my wisdom instead of my neurosis. Freedom is like being like water, non-oppositional, like it flowing and saying, oops, wrong way. Oh, go over here. Okay, oops. Oh, good flow. Whew, oops, over here. Nope, right. To be like water. Freedom is to love fully and to open my heart and to not be afraid of my fear. So we're going to take just a moment, one more moment of practice together, and I want you to consider a couple things before we do that. I'm considering starting, I'm really shifting gears here. So I'm considering starting an online group to just once a week during this pandemic, during the times that we're in this sheltering in place, just to help with these practices and to kind of cultivate them and stretch them out a little bit. So if you are interested in that, please send me an email to ToryCapron@gmail.com and let me know that you're interested in being on an online group together during this time. And in those times, they will be just how do we move through these times and a time to check in with each other. Just a reminder that you can send a donation to PayPal with friends and family if you do, or Venmo. Venmo is my email address. PayPal is just Tory Capron, or you can mail a check, and that is in the original email that I send. We're going to practice for just a moment, and then we will have a few moments for questions, and then we'll be done. So one more moment of just closing our eyes together. And again, just feeling the stillness of the world right now. Just feel your body and your breath. Listen to the sounds. And let there be a sense of water in your heart, softening your heart. As if it was just loosening the crusty, hardened places of your heart. Let in everything of this time. Let yourself feel the suffering and the beauty of this time. And let yourself be grateful for whatever is here for you in your life, for how fortunate you are to even have the time or the economic situation or the health to even be on this video together. Let your heart open and soften. I'll finish by reading a short part of a poem that was written for this time called A Prayer for Healing, and I'll just be reading the last two paragraphs. If suffering is necessary, may it also be accompanied by openings to deeper love and wisdom. May the suffering required to ride this crisis be as minimal as possible. May this be an opportunity. May this be an opportunity for the realization of more love and compassion. May this be an opportunity for the realization of more wisdom and clarity. May this be an opportunity for the discovery of more aligned ways of being. May we learn all the lessons meant for us. May the Tao be with us all. By Navlin Wang. So it's been so good to be with you all. And there looks like there are a few questions here. Does anybody have a question? There were a lot of questions before, but does anybody have a question that they would like to ask right now in these last remaining 6 minutes or so? And Lauren, why don't you unmute you?
Yeah, and questions can come.
Then you can read it, or if somebody wants to unmute themselves, Lauren, you're going to be in charge of that, and then they can just ask the question.
Can you hear me, Tori? Can you hear me? No. Tori, you
Lauren,
can't hear me?
Are you able to unmute yourself?
Apparently not unmuting. Tori, you can't hear me. I wonder if other people could hear me. If you can hear me, would you type in?
Hang on for a sec here. Let me see
Tori,
if I can unmute her.
Tori,
Are you, so
can
I
hear
see,
me.
Bod, can you hear me? And can you hear Lauren? Okay, you can hear both. I cannot, so Lauren, I cannot hear you. So if Lauren, if there's a question, send me a question. She's
Okay.
typing, hold on. I'm getting that you can all hear both, but I cannot. Okay, let's try that. Lauren, can you speak again?
Yep, I just sent you a question.
Okay,
on your personal thread.
Yeah.
On the chat.
Okay. Okay, so the question is here, you mentioned free will in your talk several times. What really is free will? Is it something contained within all of us, or is it constructed by and then I can't see the rest of it, but I can just say that free will from this standpoint, there are a number of different thoughts about it. There's some thought that we don't have free will, that actually we are so conditioned that we could never actually be free of that. But in a lot of belief, free will is where we have the ability to choose. And if we pay attention, we have way more ability to choose our response to life rather than being directed or owned by our conditioning. So in that sense, free will would be the ability to choose to do something differently. Does that make sense? Any other questions?
And if you have a question, you can just put your name in the chat, and then I'll unmute you so that you can ask it aloud if you'd like to. Tori, while we see if there are a couple more questions, I wanted to ask my own, or just offer, when you were saying, listen, when things lift, when the shelter in place lifts, to encourage us to listen before we launch. The feeling that I had is we're on retreat here, but it's indefinite. So we don't know when the retreat ends. And typically when we're ending a retreat, and also when we're beginning, we have time to reflect and contemplate and go intentionally. And here it's unpredictable. It was an unpredictable beginning, and presumably it will be an unpredictable end. And that just feels like a big question of how to work with that. I don't know if there's an answer.
Well, I'll say that this is, I was feeling in my own, when this started, a sense of sort of unsettledness in my body. And I was realizing it was exactly that we don't know when it's going to end. And it does have an added, it's heightening, it's asking a lot of us to stay in this place of don't know. And that when it does end, can we pause to take that deep breath before it's just an automatic rush back in? Because for many, that will be the impulse. And so with the not knowing, we have to stay in a state of not knowing, which is just asking more of us, which is harder. And also the result is bigger if we can do it. The outcome, the fruition is bigger. And it's also to allow the discomfort of our container falling apart in this not knowing. Like when we go on retreat, we know what we eat at these times of day and we're going to be done in a week and it's going to be, but the beauty of this is that it allows us to be, that sense of staying with the discomfort of that until that changes, but not having any judgment to it, allowing the unsettled feeling. That's human, that's natural that we would feel a sense of being kind of uncomfortable with that. When it changes, if it changes, great. If not, great too. Anything else?
Nobody else has written in, so perhaps this is time.
Okay. All right, everybody. Much, much love to all of you. Many blessings. Please let me know if you'd like to do an online group. Just send an email to me, and much love to you during these strange and beautiful and crazy times. So much love.